number one. For Shane Van Gisbergen comes in Portland.
What the heck is a quad lock?
Watch this to find out. Whether you're in the car, on the bike, on the water, in the air, your phone is an important tool. Keep it secure with Quad Lock.
I feel like sometimes without them, I can get fucking distracted real easy.
If you want to wear headphones, we can wear
No,
headphones.
we'll keep them up. I just thought,
Well, I'm easy.
like, I don't know, do you just feel like more engaged with each other? No?
I don't know. Not really.
Should we do a soundie?
Yeah, what do we even start with? Ep 27. Don't forget to subscribe. All that jazz. Patreon. We haven't started, don't worry. I was just thinking, I'm just doing
a fucking intro if that's what you're rolling with.
Starting 2025 with a bang. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Sound check.
Sound check. Oh,
Cheers, mate.
cheers. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's been great to be on your show again.
No, I'm glad you could make it today.
Oh, no! He's in the fence! The ball's in the fence! Oh, in the fence! Oh, unbelievable!
Welcome back, 2025. We're here for episode 27. So they flew by in the last, well, I mean, we did for about 6 months. We did a podcast last year. And yeah, we've got some big goals this year, which we will get to at the very end of the episode. But something we forgot nearly every time last year was to ask people to subscribe if they want to. If they don't, that's okay as well. But if you can subscribe, show your love on YouTube, helps us get fed to more people. But yeah, it's been a blast doing it so far. We decided to start Patreon at the end of last year as well. And don't worry, everything, as we said last year, is still going to be the same. We'll just be offering some extra exclusive content, maybe pre-released and things like that on Patreon. So if you'd like to support us on that, it's Apex Hunters United on there as well. And same as all our socials if you want to give us some love. But yes, don't stress. I think that was one question that came up a bit was, is the content going to stay the same this year? Like, will we be able to get access to the same stuff without having to pay? And yes, that is 100% the goal.
We're going bigger and better.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to be controlled by brands that don't like what we've been doing. We're really fortunate. All the sponsors that have supported us had seen the pod for long enough to know what it's about, and they signed up to what we're about. So that's great. But it's nice if, you guys can keep us as independent as possible because we want to do some big things this year.
Yeah. Speaking of that, Hunters, we do like to look after the brands that like to look after you guys. So East Coast Car Rental, they've still got that amazing 15% discount going. So whether it's work or pleasure, you need some wheels when you're on holiday or cruising around a different state or whatever you're doing, go to East Coast Car Rentals, use AHU15 for a ripping deal.
And if you're not looking to rent a car and you're actually in the market to buy one, Lancaster Motor Group, big supporters of ours. They got Ford, GMSV, Hyundai, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Suzuki, plenty of used cars as well. So look those guys up online. I'll put the link for both of those brands in the description below. And of course, Trico Wiper Blades has extended on for this season as well. 2025 is looking great. And yeah, so massive shout out to those brands. And thank you, Trico, as well, for all the support last year. If you need wiper blades, think of those guys. Make sure you support the brands that support us and keep us alive.
Beautiful. Now, mate, before we rung in the new year, you went and did something pretty cool. You went across the ditch and you went to your mate SVG's house, or his homeland, and you did SADDA, mate. So talk us through that, because I've seen some you're putting a video together. So you and Paulie flew over. I unfortunately couldn't go, but I was jealous looking at all the videos and photos that came through. But yeah, talk us through, for those that don't know, what SADDA is and just how much mayhem you guys caused over there in NZ for a few days.
It is. If we've got new listeners this year, SADDA is what we like to call the greatest motorsport spectacle on earth, and it is the South Auckland Demo Derby Association. It started, Shane's 30th birthday was a massive paddock basher race that was, to be fair, at the start it was almost too much of a derby, and this time, like over the years, it's become more and more a competitive race where everyone wants to finish. You know, at the start it was like just crashing into each other because it was something no one gets to do very often. Yeah. So people took the piss, and it was a pretty brutal first race. There's a few people that chose not to come back. A couple of good mates of mine were scared off after the first one, but it's become really professional. Like this last one, to win best presented on that, honestly, is as competitive as the Supercar Championship. Like people are getting full.
I've seen the cars, but I don't know about that.
We got people doing full race suits, sticker jobs. Some of them, like Shane's car, got painted in a booth, like a legit paint job. Unbelievable. It was ridiculous. He had team merchandise done, shirts, caps. There was another one there. It was, I mean, they're just off the hook now. They're live timing, so anywhere around the world you could... My phone's vibrating.
We're off to a great start, 2025.
I'll put that on Do Not Disturb, as always.
What's the format of the race, mate? Like, how's it work? It's a couple of hours, is it?
Yeah, it is. So it's a 3-hour race. But yeah, just quickly, I guess, on the live timing thing, that still blows me away. That's been a couple of years now. He's ran live timings. Anywhere in the world you can go in and see the event. Speed Hive, I think the website's called. So that's I mean, for a paddock basher race, that pretty much says all you need to know about it is there's live timing.
So that'll still be up there. So hunters that are listening to the show can go up on Speed Hive, which is my laps, I'm pretty sure, website, and you'll be able to see the race results.
You can see the race results. Look for SADDA.
Right.
So yeah, that was cool. My race went okay, but the format, I guess, like you said first, is there's heats. Now, there's one thing, we're making a documentary on it, and the documentary is pretty funny at the start, especially. It's like the scrutineering and tech is, you put Shane and his mates in a high-vis vest, and it's like Power Trip Central. It's ridiculous. You
know, it's like when you go and race New Zealand, the Kiwis don't like the Aussies come over and doing well, so they're very strict on us in tech.
Exactly. Yeah, mate, it was bullshit. It was like, I was getting so angry, and I've already put a clip online. Some people have seen me already getting in trouble, and I think I failed tech 4 times, and if you failed 3 times, you went a lap down. So I failed 4. I wasn't on my own. A lot of us failed, like a lot. Some people started.
Did Shane fail?
No. Of course he didn't. He was doing scrutineering.
It's rigged. Yeah, I saw him in a high-vis bloody vest.
So Shane was a scrutineer, and of course he passed his own car on the first go. But there was in the doco, it's difficult to show the heat format, so we've kind of skipped over that because the real main part of the day is the 3-hour enduro. But there are heats. There's then the final for the heats, which the guy who was leading that, he actually got pole for the 3-hour. He actually spun late in the race, like he ran wide, and Shane, of all people, come through to collect it. And once he won the heat final, Shane did. And it was a pretty big battle. Like, it was a tough race. My car was a Mazda 3, front-wheel drive, which wasn't too bad earlier in the day, but when it got really wet at the end of the day, it was like rear-wheel drive. Shane was in the rear-wheel drive at the end of the day, and he was like lapping people that were stuck in front-wheel drives. But, yeah, unbelievable day. The 3-hour enduro, I made it, I think, 3 stints in, and our car blew a hole in the gearbox. So that was a disaster.
Who was driving when it shit itself?
James Bailey was. So shout out James. That's Shane's cousin. So it
wasn't your fault?
No, of course. Never my fault. I did laugh. I'm so glad that I wasn't in the car when it failed. But I'm very lucky. The last time the engine blew up as well, Shannon was driving the car, my partner. She was in the car. So we blamed her for that one. This time, James, I'm blaming him. I don't think it was user error, to be fair. But that's the tricky thing. You get these cars off marketplace, whatever. God knows what's wrong with them. Some of them I think are waterlogged because the engines, a few of them see solid.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. I think there's some shit boxes that get sold online, of course. But yeah, we were doing all right. I think I was 4th at the time of engine failure. But it was physical. Like it was actually fucking hard.
Cool suit?
No cool suit this time. And no drinks until the race was over, of course.
That breatho people?
No, but it's ran fairly well. Like there's an understanding that, because what you're doing is still dangerous, right? So like, yeah, everyone's got to pull their head in, and it's actually really good. Everyone respects that. There's no way anyone's having a drink before the event is over. The power steering in my car, I didn't have it for the whole day because James, bless him, he's a great dude, fantastic dude.
Sounds like he rooted this.
But he needed miles. So we practiced the day before. Shane had like an hour-long practice, I think, for everyone. They could go at 6 or 7 p.m. the night before and do some laps. And James hit one of the hay bales on the first day, and it tore the high-pressure line off the power steering pump, and we couldn't get it repaired. So for the whole day of practice and the heats, we had no power steering. And
how were your front toes? I reckon they might have been out too.
Oh, for sure, yeah. The thing was, it might have handled better after it, but it was so fucking hard. Like my arm pump, if you watch some of the videos, like most of it's one lap one hand because it's such a short lap and you're turning so much. You're using a handbrake to steer from the rear, and you just don't get a chance to rest your arm. And if I got oversteer, there's a couple of times I shortcut the track. I couldn't get the lock off. I'd get on opposite lock, and that was it. I was fucking turning right. Yeah. So it made for a long day. So when the gearbox went, I was gutted we didn't get the result, but I wasn't too disappointed to be able to get on the beers at that point.
Sounds like you're giving an interview for a friggin' Bathurst 1000 and it's a 3-hour paddock bash.
Oh, mate. We were going to debrief this after, but the night of SADDA was a big one, and Shane was not in a good way to do a podcast the day after. So we've delayed it until now to talk about this event. But it is honestly like the guy who was leading to talk about what it means to people is one of Shane's best mates. He was leading, and there's actually a bit of controversy surrounding the win. And Shane's not going to like me talking about this, and his dad's probably not either because
I heard he cheated.
Yeah, look, it's questionable. Okay, there's every 15 minutes you had to change drivers is the rule.
Right.
There was actually a rollover. Someone flipped. It was a car.
Okay?
It was a car painted as Peppa Pig. It was fucking. I mean, it was pretty scary at the start, but he was fine.
Is that in the doco? Did you get that on film?
You can. It's actually in the clip last night. I posted on socials, so you can actually see from a distance the car upside down as people are pushing it to get it back on its wheels. But he actually completed the race. They punched the window out and continued on. But yeah, it was at that point that stint got shortened. Now, the controversy is Shane's dad went up and down the lane and had it approved apparently by an official that you didn't need to do a driver change at that point in the race. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence or if Shane planned this, but not doing a driver change there meant that he finished the race and he was the only one. So really, his co-driver should have finished the race. But because they didn't do a driver change at that point, Shane finished. They were the only ones that didn't do a driver change. This is why I'm saying it's controversy. I'm not sure.
Probably had Andrew Edwards there doing strategy for him, did he, or something?
Possibly. I put in a formal complaint. I went on the SADDA Facebook page and wrote a complaint out, and it kicked off. It's pretty funny. But anyway, Shane he was in the car at the end, and his mate, who was actually leading by a lap, handed it over to his co-driver. He stuck by the rules, did his driver change, and unfortunately his co-driver wasn't as good as him, and Jesse lost his lap lead and Shane won the race. So it ended in controversial circumstances, but it was reviewed, and I don't know. I think it's like the Adrian Burgess situation with T8. You know, when they put the dry ice there or whatever, with the drink bottle on the wrong side, but they didn't get it in writing. That's what I think should have happened, but they got away with it. So in this one, getting it in writing didn't matter. Apparently there was an official that said it. So anyway, Shane, fucking of all people, won the race. So yes, it was a disappointing end for us in the Apex Hunters car. More disappointing. I mean, you couldn't make it.
I know. I'm going to put in an official request now. Can you bring it a weekend forward so I can go next year or this year?
Can't you just move your work party?
Oh, it'd be nice, mate, but I don't get to call the big shots like that.
It was disappointing that you couldn't make it. And then actually, the number 2 on Car 87 at Triple Eight Race Engineering was going to come over with me. So Mitch Bennett was actually going to be. He was calling me the co-driver, but he was going to be my co-driver with James. And he broke his pelvis in Brisbane. Jeez. And so...
Must have been a big night.
I don't know. Yeah, he fell off a scooter, I think. So poor bastard got hurt. So it ended up being just the 2 drivers, myself and James. And that's why I said it was pretty tough. Like, it was...
So you can run 3 drivers?
Ideally you run 3. I mean, it would have been easy with power steering, but it was like the track ruts out and like you're hustling this thing because it's the most important race of the year. Like it means everything to us. But yeah, so it's I was pretty rooted, but mad fun. Some of the most fun it is the most enjoyable thing I think you do all year because as much as it matters because we're competitive, it's a great piss up at the end. It's some of the best crew you'll ever meet. You know, it's like. I don't know. There's literally no standards out there. Everyone's just having a good time racing cars in a paddock and then getting on the beers at the end of the night. So some of the vision that comes out of it is going to be a real good laugh.
Speaking of beers at the end of the night, I reckon there might have been because I got a couple of notifications on our AHU Facebook.
Yep.
God, you guys were stirring the pot, weren't you, after 15 or 20 ciders?
Oh, yeah. That was the day after the Derby. If you looked on our socials for Apex Hunters, we put out a couple controversial...
It's unlike us.
Questions. I can't remember what they were exactly, but it was, who's overrated or definitely wasn't who's underrated. I think it was who's overrated, but it was a debate that was happening between myself and Shane, a few of our mates. And it's a funny one because the questions I put, if you want to have a look, they're on our Facebook socials, but it's like 350, 400 people commenting. And
going off. And I was like, oh, shit, I know exactly what's going on here. I'm just putting my phone away.
It was just a piss take. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, we can jump ahead, but it's like this, the reason it's such a fun debate to have about who is maybe overrated or who are the best drivers in Supercars history is because there's so many factors and it's subjective at the end of the day. Like, it depends on who you like. So we were in heated debates all day about, all afternoon about, what we thought or who we thought was better and worse. And so we took it to socials. And as you can see, there's definitely no clear answers, but it was a fun conversation and that's what it's about. But it is where we've put in, Supercars. They did that top 25.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to a couple of our other points. We might as well jump ahead to the 25. personally, I think it's a silly poll. So at the moment, Supercars are doing the top 25 drivers from the years 2000 to now.
Yep.
I don't know what their criteria is. It makes no sense to me. Like some of the order, like we've got, I mean, Lee Holdsworth 100% deserves to be in the top 25. But we've got him ahead of Brock and Cam, for example, and Cam is probably particularly, he's been around longer, but he is more often than not the contender for pole. Super fast guy, won a heap of races. Brock, so he's only done 88 races and he's won more than Holdsworth, but Holdsworth's ahead of him. So, you know, I'm not saying Lee shouldn't be in there. I think he definitely should be, but to put...
Yeah, so Brock's run 12 races out of 88.
Yes, that's a pretty good win rate.
Pretty good.
I mean, he's only done 39 rounds. He's had 28 top 3 finishes from 88 starts. So, I don't know. And to rank him, I think he came in at 24th.
I think you're right. It was early in the piece.
So, I mean, whoever's making it, I just think doesn't like Brock for whatever reason. Because so we've only done 88 starts and have that sort of success in that short period. If you're talking about who can steer, he's got to be higher than just scraping in. But this is where as well, to give credit to Supercars, you can't, it's such a hard poll to do because...
Yeah, it's impossible to do because...
Brock's had the best car as well.
Yeah, he's been in a great team his whole career, and some people don't ever get into a car that's capable of winning. So there's guys that have probably never got a race win that would have had 50 of them if they were in certain cars. So, yeah, it's hard to do. It's I'm looking forward to seeing who they put number one and stuff because we're only at, what are we at now, like 18 or something like that?
No, they're at 12 now.
They're at 12 now, yeah.
But, I mean, Chaz has already been and gone now. And, again, like he's what, third on the all-time winners list without a championship, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
So you're burning early drivers that are great. I do get the feeling the top 10 or top 5, they're going to be mates of mates and they're going to be the older guys. But I think that it can't just be based on...
Seems like it's based on championships too.
Yeah.
Like championship wins.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fair enough. But again, if someone's been in the game for 20 years and someone's been in it for 4 and their stats are almost pretty similar, you would have to say the guy that's been in it for 4 years is probably better because when he gets to 10 or 15 years, he's going to be, you would think, a long way up the road. Yeah,
and that's why doing a poll of that number of drivers is probably hard. So we decided to do a top 5.
And
top 5 is kind of all-time as well. It's not just because you got guys that are still doing their career. So, I mean, like I said, I don't understand their criteria. I genuinely think it just doesn't work. I think it's silly they're doing it. But I think that if you went all-time and you still include guys that are in there.
Well, maybe they could tell us the criteria and it might make sense.
Maybe. Yeah. It's based on mates rates. Whoever you... I think that's what it is. Like JC, I saw is ahead of.
You're paying full price then, brother, if it's based on mates, right?
Yeah, and I think it's so clear. Like, I think that Supercars is angling for JC to be their next TV guy. So, I mean, he's on the.
You're calling that early?
I'm calling it early.
Should we put some money on it?
He's going to retire and step into a TV role because I mean they've used JC on like the launch of Sydney Motorsport Park for round 1 on the cards.
He's from Western Sydney.
Yeah, I know, but it's just like even the Supercar Drivers Pod or whatever it is that he's hosting that. And then, like, to put him ahead of some of the guys.
He had a bit of spray on that, didn't he?
No. Oh, he had like I think he might have. Like, I like JC. I think the fact...
It looked a little bit bitchy from what I saw.
I'm sure there was some of that in there. But in the top 25, talking specifically about that, I think JC is another one again. It has to be in there and high up. But to be that far ahead of a Brock Feeney or that far ahead of Will Brown already. Will's only done like 130 race starts or something and he's... won a championship already and he's finished on the podium every round of the season. It's pretty wild. But our top 5, you can go first, mate. Kick the ball off.
And I like the way you described the other night when we were having a barbie, you described it as like, who would be our Mount Rushmore? And I kind of like that. And we know Mount Rushmore's only got 4 heads on it, but for us...
I actually didn't know that when I checked, but
I had to Google that. I didn't know that. But we're going top 5, but it's, who would we carve into the side of the motorsport mountain in Australia?
Yeah.
So I'll go first. So I've got Peter Brock for obvious reasons.
Must have, yep.
Scafey, same thing, obvious reasons. I was always a mad Holden fan as a kid growing up, and my era was Scafey when he was dominating, so I love that. J-Dub, obviously, guru of the sport, probably the greatest of all time, in my personal opinion. And then I've got SADDA. Same thing, heaps of wins, won championships. Everyone knows he never got to win Bathurst, but he was bloody close multiple times. If he had a bit of luck on his side, he would have got there. So Cedo's in there, and I've also got Lowndesy as well.
Yeah, I think, you say, like, obviously for Brock, Scaife, J-Dub, because I think that they are, you can't really go past those guys. And not just on, I think even the length of their career and the success they had. One thing I found really hard with this is it's only 5.
Yeah. When you actually start to look at it, I wouldn't do 25, but you could do 10.
Yeah. And this is where, like, I reckon if Supercars do a poll again, it should be a fan-voted poll.
100%.
And then the results come out at the end so that it's, because even this, like, I didn't put Jim Richards in.
Yeah.
He's not in my top 5, but he's up, like, he's got to be. But anyway, I tried to be I've picked Brock, Scaife and J-Dub as well.
Yeah.
So those 3 are the same. The one, and all of our content always happens because we chat over a beer. So the other night when we're talking about this is where it come up. Ambrose, we actually looked up his stats. So he's in there for me as well, Marcus Ambrose.
Yeah.
I didn't realise just how good his career was in a short period of time, like 2001 to 2006, won 2 championships, polled. You were a bit like a statistician at the start. You like pole his first race at the Melbourne Grand Prix.
Yeah, some things you just remember. And I always remembered he polled on debut and it was a Grand Prix.
Yeah.
I just always remember someone told me that somewhere, or I watched it or whatever.
Yeah.
It always stuck. I thought, fuck, imagine that going to one of the hardest championships in the world as a rookie.
Yep.
And sticking it on pole at the Melbourne Grand Prix, like of all places. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I think so. He's in there, and his success in a short period of time was very similar to the next guy I chose.
Yep.
Because I did want to choose someone that was kind of current, but not racing anymore. Scotty Mack.
Yeah.
I mean, Scotty, I really think what he did here in Supercars probably shocked a lot of people, but then also what he went to do in IndyCar has, like, solidified how good the guy is, because I did struggle. At the start, you're like, especially when you're competing against someone, you're always looking for, like, a fucking excuse as to why they're getting the success they are.
Yeah.
Like, you look at what he did in IndyCar now, and to win ovals quite early, and he's never been an open wheel driver.
No.
So that's why Jim, I found it hard not to put Richards in, because he did so well in everything he did.
Wheelman. Yeah, drive anything.
And so maybe he's one of those, but tried to keep it more Supercar specific and to win a couple of championships in, I think 2013 to 2019 maybe, Scotty was in the championship.
Wasn't that long.
No,
and
2 championships and a Bathurst. It could have easily been 3 with what happened at Homebush.
And his win numbers crazy and stuff. But one thing you just jotted my memory then too, because we sort of touched on it earlier, like, not everyone gets the best opportunities in the sport. Like, they're not always in the best teams and things like that. Where Scotty he came in with GRM, which good team but small resources, things like that. They weren't a big powerhouse.
I do think arguably though,
but not in the Volvo. He won a race in the Commodore.
Yeah, but also so did, like, and the race I think he won at Pookie. He was behind his teammate at the time, Premat. Premat finished like 23rd in the championship year before. Premat was leading, got a puncture. So I think he was leading, got a puncture, but he got a puncture at Pookie and was ahead, I think. So it's like, I don't think.
But my point is he's won across a couple of teams.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, I mean, I put him in my top 5 for that reason as well. I think that, I just don't think GRM was as bad as.
I'm not saying they were bad, but I'm saying they weren't the powerhouse with all the money in the world.
No, of course not, yeah.
They were a group of good people doing good things with what they had.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not saying the car was a shitbox or anything like that, but they were still beating Triple Eights of the world every now and again and things like that on a 1/8 of the budget and people probably.
It is where, like, the overrated, underrated, like, and this whole little bit we're doing now stemmed from, it may have even been the Supercar top 25 that sparked the conversation between me and Shane about how stupid that poll is at the moment, because we saw. No, it must have been. I think it came out after Christmas, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out first.
But we were talking about how stupid some of the conversations are around drivers and who's good, who's not.
It's impossible to know.
Exactly, and I'm not going to say who we genuinely believe was overrated.
Go on.
Some of them are drivers you're going to be surprised, but I think that it's hard in our sport to say who's good, who's not, because of the cars. And I don't think the cars get talked about enough. And that's where the who forgot, who remembered started, all of that stuff. But we want to hear from you guys of your top. Let's keep it to 5 and try and think of the people that, like, Seaton is a great one that probably gets forgotten about as how good he was.
Yeah, and
so it's like, try and think of people that maybe didn't win everything, or they weren't, or who do you think could have been the best, and put them in your top 5. Doesn't have to just be. I mean, the Brock, Scaife and J-Dub, it's pretty hard to argue against them.
Yeah,
but people probably wouldn't put Ambrose up there, but he only did 5 years or something.
Well, that's right. And then he went and did the NASCAR stuff and did things over there. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think
it's also hard. Like, could Scotty Mack, I mean, he had 77 pole positions in the short amount of races he did.
It's crazy.
Would you say that Scotty Mack is better than Jamie, considering he didn't do any more? That's a hard conversation. That's a really difficult one.
Well,
but if you ranked your top 5, I'd probably say, I'd nearly put Scott ahead of J-Dub, because you can't base it on championships, because J-Dub did way more seasons.
Yeah, that's right. It's over the time, over length, and that's where we haven't
even done first, second, third, fourth, fifth. We just
but how we sort of did, we're like, right, okay, and that's where Marcus came in. We're like, well, hang on, he was only here for a little bit of time, and he dominated while he was here, and so, you know, his overall stats might be 15th of all time or whatever, but he's actually, in our opinion, right up there because he was only here for 4 or 5 years. So, yeah, that's how we've tried to figure it out.
Yep.
You know, rather than having one guy that's run 10 races over 20 years, you know, the guy that's won 8 over 3 years is more impressive to me than so.
So give us your top 5 and keep it conversational too. Put in there why. Like, I genuinely liked reading the comments online about why people thought someone was better than someone else, or who.
And there's no right or wrong. Like, we're all fans of the sport, so you like who you like.
Yeah.
You know, you might have a favourite driver that's never won a race, and that's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, everyone needs fans, and that's what makes the sport great. So
yeah. Hunters, just a moment for one of our sponsors. We have teamed up with Stratton Finance. So if you settle a secured loan before the 31st of January this month, 2025, you'll receive a $200 active virtual Visa card.
And if you're looking to buy that dream car, upgrade the caravan, hit the water in a new boat, or you want a commercial loan to upgrade your business or expand your business, click the link in the description below.
At Stratton Finance, their team of Australian-based brokers is here to help. With over 25 years of experience and a trusted panel of more than 40 lenders, Stratton Finance experts make it simple to find finance options that suit you.
For full terms and disclaimers, visit lp.strattonfinance.com.au/AHU.
Nailed it. Cool. Back to the pod. That's why it should be a fan poll too, if it's coming from the sporting body. Yeah. And this is where I think Supercars got it wrong, was like, if you do a poll like that, let the fans speak. Do a poll and then at the end release the results on who the fans voted top 25 from all the drivers. And every driver...
Or at least name whose opinion
Every driver from the 25 years is on the list, and the fans choose who their 25 is. And it doesn't matter that it's always going to be skewed by who their favourite driver is or who they're one-eyed supporting. That's fine.
And that's why guys like, not that he doesn't deserve it, but guys like Lowndesy would always go really well because they've got such a big fan base.
100%, yeah.
You know,
I mean, he hadn't won the championship since 99. I mean, he still won 100 races or whatever it was, and he's one of the goats. Yeah. But you look at like a Scotty Mack, and people could possibly put Lowndesy above him. You know, well, Scotty was here 5 years, 70-something poles.
That's why I was surprised by Chaz too, because Chaz is obviously an amazing driver, but also he's got a huge fan base.
Massive. Yeah.
So for him to be so far down the list, that surprised me.
Why do you think Chaz has won so many races without winning a championship?
Ooh.
That's tough. We've never brought that one up before.
I would probably say it's the teams he's driven with, not as consistent as some of his competitor teams. Mm-hmm. It would be just off the cuff without knowing you were going to throw that at me, Scotty.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, it's
a bit unfair as well, because I actually think Chaz would have won the championship the year he had the Bathurst accident.
Yes, I agree. He was in dominant form that year, and unfortunately, shit happens and he got injured.
So then the next question, it would have been, why hasn't Frosty won one?
Frosty has won a championship.
No, I'm saying if Chaz did complete that season, I think he likely would have won that championship.
Yeah.
But then I guess the question would have then been, because this is how quickly things can change. Yeah. Frosty's going to be ranked in the top 10 now because he won a championship, but Chaz is a rookie. Not a rookie, but his second season was beating him until his accident. Yeah. And then I think he really had the upper hand on Frosty from that point on. But Frosty hasn't popped up in this top 25 yet. Chaz has already been and gone.
And you'd imagine he's in there because he's one of the greats.
Yeah. So how do you, who the fuck's doing this ranking? That's what I want to know, is I don't understand it.
Yeah. But yeah, my answer to your question, mate, would be, I would just say it's the consistency of the teams he's driven for.
Yeah.
You know, if Chaz had been, as an example, with a DJR Penske when they were dominant or Triple Eight when they've been dominant, I would say, he'd win a championship, no dramas.
Yeah. And even with Frosty, like with the Tickford days, I remember being at T8 and it was like T8 made less mistakes, I think, but there was times where Tickford had faster cars and made more mistakes and lost the championships. I think that Frosty could be multiple champion, or Chaz could have been multiple champion if he was at the T8 car.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's just because...
There's probably, I would say, and there's no disrespect to the guys that won the championship in the T8 cars, but there's probably 10 to 15 guys, I think, that could have done that in that package. So, yeah.
Interesting, but we want to hear from you guys because ultimately I think the whole thing is subjective, because if you base it on just results, you can't even take into account the quality of the team or the cars or the amount of seasons someone drove for. But anyway, it was a rabbit hole we went down very fast when we were drinking in New Zealand.
You know what? Good on them for having to go and putting content out, because I was bored anyway, so it was nice to read some stuff.
Yep.
We weren't here. You were in Japan skiing,
Great
mate.
to find the silver lining.
We couldn't do anything. So
I've been happy to be offline for a little bit. And if you had been wondering why Apex Hunters was quiet, we did want to have...
We're lazy.
Yeah, we needed it. We needed I wanted 2 weeks of just switch off, and then this year we have some massive targets. One of which is at the end we're going to talk about, but I do want to say it now, is we got a big goal of trying to get over 100 podcasts. We're at 27 this one.
We got a shitload of work to do this year then, brother. Jesus.
But I think there's some crazy stat of 90 odd fail before they hit 100. So we're like, fuck, if we get there by the end of the year, that's a big goal. So I don't even know.
We're just going to pump out heaps of mediocre episodes.
You get a heap of spam of shit episodes. But no, and that's the thing. The quality cannot drop. We've got to go places. I want to do some stuff overseas, and we've got to do some big stuff.
So do you want to go back to the other one?
I do.
Cool.
Let's do it.
So one thing I noticed, and I'm sure hunters out there listening and watching, you would have noticed too, I think yesterday it might have been IndyCar's announced there on Fox.
Well, actually, before I get into that, Bubs, sorry, let's go back. The reason you haven't gone back is because it's your 2025 plans.
Oh, but I don't want to go into all of them, but I am returning to Trans Am because I can't announce everything yet.
Okay. Well, you could have told me that before the pod when we're pre-planning this.
Well, I can still talk about what I'm doing. I'm just not giving all the little carrots away.
Okay. One question that came up when I was in New Zealand, though, was that for people that are joining the pod and that are new, who are we and what do we do? And I think one of the things is that, for me, it's very straightforward. I just race supercars for the last 11 years.
You're a big deal.
But I haven't done many different things. I've kind of just done supercars for the last 11 years, and now I'm co-driving with T8. So if I do some other racing, that I would love to, but I don't have anything in the plan at the moment. And last year, I was with T8. So that's...
You did a Porsche.
That's yeah, exactly. But yeah, I don't do a lot of extra different races and stuff, but you do a lot of different stuff. So very quickly, I do want the listeners that are new or maybe don't know everything about you, just a quick, what have you done?
High level.
Even some of the driving instructing, I think, really is at a very high level that most people wouldn't be aware of.
Yeah.
So when you're passing judgment on people driving, or we're talking about things, your time in the seat is massive, and your experience is actually, it's more vast than mine is in different cars.
Yeah. Well, from a driver, I'll just cover off the driver training stuff first. I did a heap of stuff from 2008 to 2000 and really sort of 19, 20, almost full-time as a driver. As full-time as you can be in this part of the world as a driver trainer. So I was probably doing maybe on my busiest year, maybe 110 days a year driver training. So sitting in a passenger seat or driving cars around. But I did a lot of stuff for Pete Hackett, and he has the contract for Mercedes-Benz here in Australia, but also does a lot of stuff in Asia. So I travelled a lot around Asia, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, all those places, driving at places like Sepang and Buriram in Thailand, doing a heap of driver training. So that was a heap of fun. And then racing, mate, as you said, unfortunately, I didn't get to the level I wanted to. So I didn't get to sit in supercars for 10, 15 years. I sort of had to hustle my ass off and drive whatever I could. So, Super 2 with you, obviously, in that great year of 2012.
Yeah, the easiest year to come in is pretty much privateer and try and do it.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Very tough season.
So did, year in Super 2, and then went to the V8 Utes, which was a heap of fun. Learnt heaps actually in that, which some people may be surprised at, but it's hard racing.
That racing was, I still remember there's
kind of like SADDA, but on racetracks.
Yeah. That racing was good though. It's like you talk about go-karting being great to learn your racecraft. Those guys raced hard.
And they can all drive, right? And I think that's the perception of motorsport globally too, is unless you're in that top category, everyone thinks everyone else is no good. But in Australia, it's so overpopulated for only 25 seats. There's probably 200 people that are really good, maybe more, in this country that are really, really good at driving a race car.
And when you get the people that don't, like yourself, that don't get to make a full-time career out of it, you end up funneling down into other championships.
Right.
So the depth in some of them is like the guys that have either co-drove because they couldn't get a full drive or something like that, or they've raced their whole life and couldn't get the budget for a full season in Supercars, so they get one-off drives, or they go to the utes, the Super Utes. I mean, the utes now have changed so much. They're still, I mean, they're better now than they were a couple of years ago, but that ute series was stacked.
Oh, yeah, like you had Cameron Conville, Nathan Pretty, like guys that were turning up every October at Bathurst and doing really well as coes and had full-time careers. You're racing against them. So, yeah, utes. Did some GT stuff with Techno at the time. John O'Webb ran the McLaren program. And, yeah, I drove with Nathan Antunes, who was an ex-junior Red Bull driver. And, yeah, we won the last event for that season, which was actually at Highlands, which was awesome. And that was, again, I've had this knack of doing categories when they're really stacked with talent, which is great because I would rather run 5th or 10th in an amazing field than win against no one. Because there's the only way you learn, right?
100%, yeah.
So that year was really good because we had all the factory Euros out racing against us. I think Shane was doing some stuff as well every now and again in some of those races. So that was good. And then, yeah, obviously the last couple of years been doing Trans Am and things like that. So I've raced heaps of other crap across the years, but I now find myself in the Trans Am. And again, same thing. Last year was crazy competitive. Like we had Jimmy Golding, you know, arguably probably top 5 supercar driver at the moment for raw speed. James Moffat, Todd Hazelwood won Bathurst last year, won the championship. There's heaps of good guys, heaps of coes in there.
I mean, you brush over James Moffat, but it's like you mentioned it quickly as a passing comment almost. That
He's a race winner.
100%. And he's done Supercars as a full-time driver. He's co-drove now for a long time. He's one of the best co-drivers you're going to get your hands on. And he's even won the Trans Am as well. Yeah,
and he's a real, like, you know, when you race against guys, you can tell how good they are.
He's a fucking hard racer.
And how much of a hard... And I've had a couple of good races the last couple of years with James. And, yeah, when you beat him, you know you've earned it.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just going to let you roll past him. So, I actually quite enjoyed racing against Moff because there's a bit of a bump and a grind and you know you've earned it. So, yeah, that's sort of what I've done at a very high level. I've raced a lot of different stuff.
And then this year, what does 2025 look like that you can say?
Yeah, so I'm back in the Trans Am, which is great. Still in the same car, which is awesome. Still got the same major sponsor behind me in Pioneer DJ and Jans, which is amazing. They've been phenomenal, and we're ramping it up this year. I will say that. Like the last couple of years, we've done the best we can with sort of what we had, and you know we run the car ourselves. We're a privateer team, I guess, is what you'd call it.
Well, even that, with some of the nights we can't do the podcast.
It's because I'm at the workshop.
Yeah, you're actually working on your own car, or you leave early for the race weekends because you drive the truck. Yeah. And some people probably, I mean, most people wouldn't realise.
It's pretty funny when I get to like a setup day, so like a Thursday or Friday race meeting. Everyone's there with their full teams, it's just me. Because I fly my boys in that night so they can still work, right?
Yeah, right.
So they don't have to take an extra day off. So that's pretty funny the looks you get when you're like rolling out toolboxes and cars by yourself and stuff. But yeah, so this year we're having a real crack, and you never know how well you're going to go, but I would comfortably say this is the most prepared I've ever been.
Awesome.
To try and win a championship. So, yeah, I'm pretty fired up. It'll be good. And then we've got some really good people that have come on board this year that are going to help us as well. So we kick off 21st of March at Tassie.
Nice.
So we've still got a few weeks to get everything ready, but like I haven't tested in 3 years, man. And I booked a test day today, so like I'm already ahead of the game.
Fuck, that's good.
So yeah, I'm pumped. But that's sort of what I've done at a very high level.
Very
so
nice.
for those that didn't know who I am and probably still don't,
that's good. I mean, I think I had some great chats with people in New Zealand that are watching the podcast, and they said, we'd love to know more about what your history was as well, because you know they know that you race and they see you race now, and if you can, number 75 Pioneer DJ car at the Trans Am events, keep an eye on it. But yeah, like you know, you see Adelaide, and I think people are like, oh fuck, he's like you're running third behind Moff and Hazelwood right up the arse of him, and I don't know, it's definitely I know how much you don't like talking about yourself, so that's probably why you skip that page as well. But
I've never been a self-promoter, which has been to my detriment, right? If I had the confidence that I probably have now as a junior, and like that's where you were so good, mate. Like
arrogant as anything.
No, but like you know, you didn't come from money.
Yeah.
But you worked your ass off, and you got guys like Roland Dane to sponsor you.
Yeah.
Just from pure grit and determination, and picking up the phone and just constantly emailing people. Like where I was always like, hopefully I do okay, and that's enough.
Yeah. And I mean that was like we put at the end of last year. What was some of the biggest things we learned, and that was one of your lessons was putting yourself out there more. And this podcast was actually it was very scary at the start. Like especially some of the stuff we said, because we didn't want to be filtered at all. I just wanted to try and make the sport better. And by doing that, my philosophy is you have to be brutally honest to like raise what the issues are. Otherwise, how do you ever fix them? But it was like putting yourself out there, and it is one of the biggest things we've learned. And the success that comes from that is often worth the risk. And we got a few memos come through last year. I missed them actually. One particular one was about asking for sponsorship. Yeah, we went through today to see, and I was spewing. I missed it. There was someone asking about what some advice you would give on sponsorship, and it's a really hard one to answer because it's so hard to find sponsorship to go racing. There is no secret to it. There's no silver bullet. It's just graft, and it is putting yourself out there. And it's like when you're dating when you're young. Don't be afraid of the no's. You're going to get a lot of them. It was like Roland Dane when I remember asking him for support, and you always got to have a strategy or how you do it. And I didn't directly ask him for money at the start. My strategy was like, I knew he would have a commercial department that I would never have access to if like personally. So I actually said to him, instead of asking for money, I said, this is the budget that I'm trying to raise. Would you mind if I worked with your commercial department to, polish some proposals and work on, trying to pitch sponsors and I guess give me the ability to go into a brand at a professional level and ask them for money. And I didn't ask for money directly, and it was a long burn, and he did actually sponsor me. So just before the season started, I was still short, but he'd seen the effort I was putting in and went, I'll cover the deficit. And that's how I covered my year in Formula Ford. We won the championship, and it kind of went from there, and he became my manager after that. But it is like, it's not always going to be either that you get, say you go and you ask for $10,000, you might not get 10. But negotiate and try and get what you can, and then build a relationship with those people, work hard at it. And that's what you've done with Pioneer. It's one of those ones. Like
the biggest thing you say is a relationship.
100%.
I mean, it can't just be a transactional thing.
No.
Because then it's never going to work for anyone.
Exactly, yeah. And I got a million no's. That's the thing. You just have to have a good plan. I mean, I had a 5-year plan when I was 10. And it was like, it's so silly to think back and think, what kid has a 5-year plan? But you can't go in empty-handed and ask for money. It's like, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to take you on the journey. Some people would actually go, look, I can't support you, but I know someone that can. And then they'd send me down there. And start with realistic amounts, but you just got to be prepared to pick the phone up, ask to grab a coffee with someone, go and meet with them. If you're young, go with your dad. Or the best thing I think my dad did was he often made me do the conversations on my own. So he would actually, and I know, I look back now and I think of a 30 or a 40-year-old guy that accepted to chat to a 10-year-old. It was a life lesson that he knew my old man's teaching me more than anything. But you're going in and you're asking for a realistic amount, and they actually appreciate that you're prepared to get my dad's
hard to say no to a kid too.
Yeah.
And so when they rock up to your front door with like the charity chocolate box for school and stuff, you're like, yeah, I'll take a couple of tweets. Come here.
But even as a very small business owner, I don't care about receiving an email from a kid that's got poor grammar or whatever it might be. But I'd much rather that than getting one from someone's dad telling me how good the kid is.
Yeah, correct.
Because I want to see the kid having a crack, and so that's what I say. Yeah, just put yourself out there, have a go.
Yeah, and I'm testament to that because I'm now in a far better position with racing at 34 than I was at 15 to 25 when I was really trying to make a career out of it, and that's purely because I've now get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's awkward to pick up the phone and talk to someone you don't know and ask them for help.
Yeah, exactly.
But you're never going to get yes if you don't. See old Michael Jordan, you miss every shot you don't take.
100%.
And so, it's good advice.
And I mean, I look back now and I think about some of the stuff I got to race, and just if anyone doesn't know, because I think a lot of people don't start either because they assume you have to have money.
Yeah.
And my dad was a truck driver his whole life. My mum works at Woolworths now. And I grew up in Elizabeth and Adelaide. I think our house was, 180 grand or something like that when we sold it in like 2003. So it's not like, I didn't come from money, but my parents worked their ass off and they instilled good ethics in me, especially as my mum and dad are both hard workers. But that showed that, I raced in a category for 1 year on $1 million that I raised in sponsorship to go and drive. I got paid in the end to race Super 2.
Yeah.
Probably one of the only kids that would have got, paid to race Super 2. Right? And so it is possible. Maybe Formula One, like I looked at that and I think, fuck, but I'm glad I had a crack at it because if you shoot for the stars, you can always find something.
Used to be good when we were young too, right? I remember when Scott came back from Europe, you were living at my joint and you were on the cusp of F1 greatness. It used to be our pickup line when we were out when we were young and single lads.
What's it? Hang on, be careful what you say here, Bubs.
You can cut this out if it's no good. You'd Google it and said F1 prospect and you'd show all the girls at the bar.
Maybe. You got to use your strengths.
Exactly. Hey, I rode those coattails. Don't worry about that.
Oh, fuck. Anyway, let's move on. But there's some, I love that. So let's try and motivate some young kids out there who might be listening. So Get into it, mate. Go on.
Sound check.
Sound check. I was waiting on mine too.
Lovely. Good segue there, mate. But should we dive into the IndyCar stuff?
Yes.
So for those of you, I'm sure you probably would have seen the motorsport fans out there, IndyCar are going to be on Fox this year, Fox Sports.
Very exciting.
Which is awesome because they kind of got stuck on the stand product and nothing against the stand product, but in Australia, not a lot of people have stand sport. So we kind of missed a bit of IndyCar the last couple of years other than what we would see on social media and things like that. So I think it's great, obviously having guys like Scotty Mack and Will Power and all of that in the in IndyCar that we can follow up easier.
Yeah.
But one thing that I noticed was straight out the gate, Fox have done this ad. And they're obviously going to do it for most of the drivers or all of the drivers, I hope. And they've done it with Joseph Newgarden. And he's one of the top drivers in IndyCar. But the thing I love about it is it's all about him. He's I think in one shot he's wearing a helmet. The rest of the time it's actually his face. And it's a backstory on him if you haven't seen it, about him growing up as a kid. And it's a bit of a piss take and it's a bit funny and how he becomes this IndyCar star. And I said to Scotty, I love what they're doing because I feel like, and I was actually watching something today with Russell Ingall from Topra on the weekend when he was driving his SBR championship winning car. And he said to Rusty, that era when he won that was the heyday, he thinks, of Australian motorsport. And they were all household names. Yeah. And back then there was heaps of stuff with them. Like they would walk down the street and get recognised. And now, most supercar drivers will go to a cafe, walk down the street, and they won't get recognised. I remember I walked out of Indy with Toby Price was next to me, and then I think Winterbottom or one of the greats of the sport was also walking out the same time of us. And Toby got stopped like 50 times on the way to the pub, and Winterbottom didn't, and it was a supercar event. So I think, they've lost a little bit of that. People don't know who they are because they're always with a helmet on. And I love that IndyCar have gone down that path, or Fox have gone down that path of promoting the driver. And it's spurred a bit of a conversation we had about, I'd love to see supercars get back to that. So, and I said to you, like, you're in Japan and you got noticed because of the podcast and YouTube. Yeah. So in 6 months of us doing this show, you're more recognisable than what you were in a 15-year career as a main game driver, winning races and being on the podium and stuff like that. So it's just crazy. Like,
it is, yeah.
They need to do more with the helmets off and actually promote the drivers so they become household names, and then it builds the sport up.
I 100% agree. And I think that one thing we're getting caught up in is focusing on the product of the car racing. Yeah. And that's all supercars seem to care about right now. And they've kicked a massive goal with the format, which is unreal. So I reckon what we could do now is shift the focus from the cars and the format and everything, and now focus on the stars of the show.
Because the product's so good.
The product's great.
It doesn't need fixing. It's the best racing in the world.
It is. And even when we've talked to drivers, and this is off the record as well, they're actually quite complimentary of Gen 3. So it's not as bad as people might think. And also, one thing I wish they were more transparent with at the start was acknowledging this is like year one of a business, right? So you're going to have teething problems, and it should have been an open book on how we're going to improve it. And I think parity was talked about too much, but things actually got left for too long before they were rectified. So that became issues. I think if we were more proactive in trying to improve the stuff immediately and acknowledge that it's year one of a new car and there's going to be some teething problems, fans would have been more accepting of that. But we're past all of that now, I feel. We're a lot closer than we've ever been before in terms of parity, and especially, like we've talked to Shane, he said NASCAR has massive parity issues.
They just don't talk about it.
They just don't talk about it. So it's like, I reckon we're actually in a really good spot with the sport in terms of like its performance and the show. And I actually think it's like Formula One versus IndyCar. I'm excited that Fox has IndyCar because it is one of the coolest forms of motorsport to watch. The drivers, you see an onboard shot in that thing, and those guys are working their ass off. The steering's heavy. They get out. They're exhausted.
I love St. Pete's, but, watching onboard at St. Pete's
physical
is cool. And they give you everything. They give you ovals and road course.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's really cool. Like, I love watching IndyCar. It's been hard to actually get access to it. But that's probably where I'd say, like, if you're watching F1 or you're a new fan to it, say, through Drive to Survive, you would like the way that the drivers are stars, and that's kind of what I think people have latched onto. Like Mitch Evans, he races Formula E for Jaguar, and I was with him in New Zealand, and he was saying the stardom of F1 drivers in Monaco, and Monaco's got like the biggest stars in the world, man. And
he said that dodging taxes.
He said F1 drivers walk down the street and they get more attention than a football player now, like a Premier League player. It's like wild how famous they are, and that's what people are loving. But the product is probably better in IndyCar. But I think that Formula One in the past sort of 4 or 5 years has done a better job of marketing the stars of the show and building the profile through them than maybe IndyCar has. And I think that Joseph Newgarden's new ad might be the first thing we're seeing of them starting to focus on the drivers, because they kept saying Joseph Newgarden. His name was reiterated through that ad. We saw his face more than we've seen all year.
And they put Tom Brady in it as a cameo.
What?
So like they're bringing all these massive stars in.
Hopefully they haven't just blown all their budget.
Well, I mean, you said, fuck, how much did that cost? Like,
Yeah.
It was a 2-second cameo. It would have been a couple mil probably. But yeah, it's...
Hopefully that's what, I mean, hopefully Supercars start to look at that now and go, okay, like we can now start to move our attention to the marketing of the drivers, because you just don't need to see the cars on track. Like, no one really cares about a photo of a race car. I remember when I'd just post on socials after a race weekend, and you keep an eye on what does well and what doesn't, and I'd post a photo of the car and it would bomb. Like, it would just tank. No one would sort of engage with the post. You post a photo of yourself with the crew or a podium shot or like something with some personality involved, and it can be literally with the mechanics. Could literally just be the mechanics even. And it gets more engagement than the photo of the car on track. So people don't care really about that. They want an exciting race, which I think we get most of the time. But I think we need to start to build the drivers up, because they're the backbone of the sport, of like how you get popular. You know, I think that's where build some stardom.
Yeah. And I heard a saying at this seminar I was at, and it was actually quite true, I think, to sport and to just to business in general, but think American but deliver Australian. So Australia's really good at, like, we've got a quality racing product.
Yep.
We're really good with that side of things, but we sometimes probably don't think big enough. So, and I like what IndyCar is doing. It's obviously an American series, but they've done that sort of almost like the NASCAR show, but to an open wheel series.
Yeah.
And I think it's, I think it'll be really good. So I just thought that was a cool thing to mention. And yeah, I mean, we want to see the stars of Supercars be known.
Yeah,
we want them to walk down the street and kids want to grab a poster or grab an autograph and actually be recognised, because it's a bloody hard sport.
Yep.
It takes a lot to get to it. You've got to raise money. It's not just like being really good at kicking a footy straight and getting drafted. It's like there's a financial aspect to it. You've got to go raise funds. You've got to, it's hard. So
even, it sounds, it's going to be funny, so bear with me, but I think some cross collaboration of athletes would be great for our current athletes to get opportunities to. So it's not always easy to just reach out to other sporting codes and get promotional opportunities. So I think that the sporting body needs to help facilitate some of those, like reaching out to the AFL and collaborating a little bit, or it might be the NRL or cricket. I think that if we could leverage that a little bit more, and you see it every now and then.
Yeah. Do you remember the Gatorade Challenge? Was it the Gatorade Challenge?
Wingcup did amazing at that.
And that was so cool, because what that did was people sit in a race car and they they're not athletes is what some perception is, right?
Yep.
We know that's completely wrong, but when they did that, I thought that was great. And that was a few years ago. Like, he was up against NRL, AFL, all the different sporting codes, and he ran like second or something against all these different physical tests.
Yep.
And then that straight away just gave the sport so much credibility, because everyone goes, fuck, these guys are hardcore athletes, because this guy...
Frosty as well was one. He smashed it.
Yeah, it just gives him so much credibility. So, yeah, completely agree. The cross-pollinating between the different codes of sport.
It is going to come back to drivers taking some ownership of it, though, because you've got to work hard. And it will be more than just to make the car go fast. It's like we want to build the sport up and increase our fan base and everything. And it's like, it sounds stupid, and that's why I say bear with me, because it's not like it's going to change performance. You can still drive the car fast or whatever, because they're all fit. Like, some might not look fit, but they're all fit. They work hard. But I think that, I've been at places where I've heard other athletes talk about drivers that are racing the championship now, and it's a piss take. They're like, Frosty, when he'd go and train at Essendon, he said the people just assumed he'd be terrible, but then he'd go out there and actually run with them and train with them and prove that, like, fuck, and then they actually got his respect. It's like, if we want to cross promote with other athletes and things, I reckon we've got to be at a high level so we get the respect. You got to work for it.
So our 2025 goals, mate, did you want to dive into that and just sort of...
I think so. Before we finish this up, I think it'd be really cool, because in our planning before this, we did talk about a few things we'd love to do. We want to do more live shows this year. We didn't actually do any, so not more. We want to do some live shows.
Tick that box.
It came around very fast at the end of last year, and to be honest, it wasn't something we thought about. We just wanted to do this and see if it you know, if anyone would even listen at the start. And
then turn up.
Exactly. So we're like, okay, got to Christmas and we're like, fuck, I wish we had organised something, because we had some fantastic support where we would have actually liked to have met people in person and had chats, and it just didn't happen. It was too late. So this year, a big goal of ours is to do some live shows, and do one on a supercar weekend would be a big goal of mine, because a lot of our fans, we talked about at the end of last year that we wanted to do a live show with them, but doing it, say, in Melbourne, or only having one for the year, there's a lot of people that might not be able to make it because it costs money. But if we did it on a supercar weekend at a pub or a bar nearby, maybe we would have more chance of accessing more people, like getting coincidence that people are in town and they come to an Apex Hunters podcast or come have a beer at a bar.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. So the live show's good. We said we want to hit the 100 eps, which we're going to do.
That one's we're going to do.
Well, we're going to try. But we also want to...
Originally, the goal was a pod per week, and then we realised that's not going to get us anywhere near the 100.
It'd still get us to like 76.
So we're like, shit. Okay, but so 100 is... It's a bit of a pipe dream, but we'll see how we go.
We're going to have a crack, guys. But we also want to cover off more motorsport because, yeah, I mean, we love motorsport, and we probably neglected things like IndyCar and didn't do as much NASCAR as we would have liked to. And F1 is one that I know you're really keen on doing. So we're going to try and be more into that too, which will be good. I'm excited about that too, especially the NASCAR IndyCar stuff. We had a few people last year, a few hunters say they want some stuff around like support categories and things like that. So we're going to run with some of those new segments as well. So we're definitely going to pump out more content than we have in the last 6 months.
Yeah, even sprint cars. You know, it's not grassroots. It's at a very high level. But I think that's been I still go to sprint cars. I love what they do. I mean, the show they put on Adelaide was unbelievable. So it's still amazing. Some drivers in there and opening, maybe trying to bring some eyeballs across to that part of motorsport as well would be very exciting.
Yeah, and I hope they turn up at more events than just Adelaide this year.
Well, that's hopefully what Adelaide did though, was maybe
showcase what can be done. Yeah. So it's pretty exciting, guys. I'm pumped for the year, so it's going to be a shitload of work, but we love it.
Obviously with Shane racing too, last one was we want to get to an NASCAR race.
Yes.
And if we can, tie it in with, there were a whole bunch of content like what you're going to see with SADDA. I took Paul that works for me here at One Nine Media over. He filmed it. We'll do very similar stuff with NASCAR if we can get over there. And the same with IndyCar, because we like to claim our Kiwis, and there's a few obviously that are doing well still with Scotty Mack.
And Shane.
Yeah, exactly. And Shane and even Scott Dixon, I think he's still running around. So he's like always there. So there's a few. And then obviously Will Power, of course, is our Aussie boy in IndyCar that we'd like to maybe showcase a bit more, because over the past it hasn't been that accessible to watch it. And now I think that's going to change. So hopefully we can get to watch more IndyCar, as you guys will as well. And we can chat to some of the stars of the show in that and NASCAR.
Well, thanks for tuning in, hunters.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Have a successful 2025, and we'll see you at the next step.